So very quickly, I will go through a bunch of, so rather quickly I'm going to go through all of the positions and the setup moves that you can use to get them into the position that receives from the buffer position. This one, UL, is already there. FL, you just do an L prime. BL, you just do an L. DL, you do an L2. LU, you either have to do something like L prime, little d, L prime, or you can use the alternative algorithm that shoots UL to L, it shoots, or you can use the alternative algorithm that shoots UR to LU rather than UL. And it's the same basically with all of these. For LF, you can either do little d prime L, or you can just do L prime and do the alternative algorithm. For LB, you can either do little d L prime, or you can just do L and do the alternative algorithm. For LD, you can either do something like L little d L prime, or you can just do an L2 and use the alternative algorithm. For UF, you can either do little L2, D, L2, or you can just use the J-perm. For UB, you can either do little L2, D prime L2, or you can just use the J-perm. For FU, you can either do little L, D prime L2, or you can just do L prime and do the J-perm over here. For BU, you can either do little L prime, D L2, or you can just do a little L and do the J-perm. For DF, you can do D prime L2 and do the T-perm, or you can just do little L2 and do the J-perm. For DR, you would probably want to do D2 L2 and do the T-perm, but you could do something like do a D little L2 and do a J-perm. For DB, you could either do DL2 and do the T-perm, or you could just do a little L2 and do the J-perm. For FR, you would do little d2 L. For BR, you would do little d2 L prime. For RF, you would do little d prime L prime. For RB, RB, you would do little d, little L. So that's all the edges. So now for the corners. For UFR, you just do the Y perm. For FUR, you would either do R prime D R2 and do the Y perm, or you could just do Y or R and do a J perm. For RUF, you could either do F D prime F2 and do the Y perm, or you could just do F prime and do a J perm. For URB, you could either do R2 D R2 and do the Y perm, or you could just do the J perm. For BRU, you would do Y prime and just do the Y perm. For RUB, you would do R prime F prime and do the J perm. For UFL, you would either do F2 D prime F2 and do the Y perm, or you just do the J perm. For LFU, you would do F and do the Y perm. For FUL, you would do FR and do the J perm. For RUF, or for RUB, you could either do R prime D prime R prime and do the Y perm, or you could do Y prime, or you could do R prime F prime and do a J perm. For FUB, you could either do F prime D F prime and do a Y perm, or you could just do FR and do a J perm. For DFR, you could either do D prime F2 and then a Y perm. You could do D R2 and do an F perm, and do a Y perm. Or you could do either F2 or R2 and do J perms. For FRD, you would do R and do a J perm, or and do a Y perm. For RDF, you would do F prime and do a J perm. And you would do F prime and do a Y perm. For DFL, you would do F2 and do a Y perm. For FDL, you would do F prime R and do a Y perm. For LFD, you could either do D prime R and do a Y perm, or you could just do F and do a J perm. For RDL, or for RDB, you would do a Y2 and then a Y. You would do an R2 and then a Y perm. For RBD, you would do D prime R and do a Y perm. For BRD, you would either do D prime F prime and do a Y perm, or you would just do R prime and do a J perm. For DBL, you would do either DF2 or D prime R2 and do a Y perm. For LBD, you would do D2 F prime and do a Y perm. For BDL, you would do D2 R and do a Y perm. So those are all the setup moves.